from Cork, Ireland. Wearing white trunks, he weighs 155 and a half pounds, Mick Leahy. His opponent from the Bronx, wearing black trunks, he weighs 159 and a half, Irish Joey Archer. Main event, 10 rounds.
Good evening, gentlemen. Joey and Mick, this is your first fight in New York, and we welcome you. You've been informed by the New York State Athletic Commission about the rules and regulations. Everything is clear. Any questions? Mr. Archer, protect yourself at all times, and especially when stepping out of clinches. Shake hands now, and good luck to both of you.
'Twas in Terra del Fuego in South America, where the Russian challenged Morrissey, and unto him did say, I see you are a fighting man, and wear the belt I see. What do you say? Will you consent to have a round with me? Then up spoke bold Jack Morrissey with a heart so brave and true. I am a gallant Irishman that never did subdue. I can fight the Yankee, the Saxon, bull or bear, in honor of bold Paddy's land, and still the belt I'll wear. They both shook hands, stepped in the ring, commencing for to fight. It filled each Irish heart.
Well, when I think of Cork boxing and the Cork boxing tradition, the first person I think of is Jack McAuliffe. He was born in Cork City. His parents were living in Christchurch Lane at the time, 1866, and like many other Irish people of the time, they emigrated to America, and he was an extraordinarily successful boxer. It was difficult to believe, but he was never defeated. He was light heavyweight champion of the world from about 1886 to for 6-7 years.
There's a game some call the fight game, and some the noble art. Blokes who play this game need banks of courage, banks of heart. It's a rough game, a tough game, needing guts and skill, and you'll never make a boxer if you haven't got the will. In the ring, he's the king, who can get knocked down and come up for the kill.
The second boxer who strikes my memory as being an exceptionally interesting exponent of the noble art was Packy Mahony. Now, Packy was from Blackpool, and it was well known Blackpool was a tough area and produced very tough men. But Packy entered the prize ring when he was a young man in 1910. And his first official prize fight in public was against a very experienced ex-Dragoon regiment boxer called Sid Barber. And the contest was in the Assembly Rooms in Cork for the Munster heavyweight title. And Packy went in there against a very skillful boxer, and he stopped him, or he knocked him out in the 8th round. And that was his introduction. So he became extremely popular naturally after that. But the real contest that sparked, or that solidified Packy's reputation, was a contest he lost. And Packy in 1913 was matched against Bombardier Billy Wells, who was a very skillful, experienced boxer. But unfortunately for Packy, in the 4th round, he was caught by a very strong left hook, and his jaw was broken. Now, I'm not sure whether he knew about that or not, but he boxed for another 9 rounds, and he wasn't finished until the 13th round when the fight was stopped. But naturally he became a real hero after that, and when he came back to Cork in July, he was met by a crowd of approximately 10,000 people, and he got an enormous reception. Bonfires, bands, and also a special tournament in his honour, and there was a special testimonial committee set up to honour his feat. And I came across quite recently a very interesting letter, and this is what it says. It goes without saying that Packy Mahony nobly risks his life in an effort to bring honours to his native city of Cork, for which the poor fellow has suffered much. It now remains for the citizens of Cork to do their part and mark their appreciation of his noble conduct by giving him on his return a princely reception and a decent purse. I have no doubt that if, say, half a dozen energetic, influential citizens will take the matter in hand, the citizens of Cork will generously respond to the Packy Mahony Testimonial Fund. I am a poor man, but I will commence by giving £5 and 5 shillings, which was an enormous amount at that time. And it was signed by John O'Keefe, number 40, Blarney Street, Cork. And that is a very interesting tie-up with another famous Cork boxer in the modern era, Tommy Hyde. Because Tommy went to school in Blarney Street, and there was a teacher called Dan Dennehy in that school that turned Tommy into a boxer, because he brought boxing into the school. They used to have little boxing tournaments, juvenile tournaments in the garden of the school, and that's how Tommy Hyde began boxing. And if you like, the highest point of Tommy's career came in 1946 when he won the Irish national senior title in the National Stadium in Dublin. And do you know who his opponent was? It was Billy O'Mahony, which was Packy's son.
A Cork boxing legend with animal pride was Tommy Hyde from the Surrey side. The greatest ringmaster ever was seen, distinguished himself in Ireland's Green. In the City Hall packed on a Friday night, Sir Tommy Hyde displayed all of his might, dancing and swerving, had him all in the reel with his lightning hands and a chin like steel. A hero, legend, personified was Tommy Hyde from the Surrey side.
Well, I suppose I was about 10 or 11 years of age. I started in Fairhill Boxing Club with a great Sketchy Roach. And then I went on to go to Blarney Street School, and I'm handed by the name of Mr. Dennehy. Dan Dennehy, he started me on the boxing, and I won the Munster Championships in 1938 in the City Hall at 5'7".
Tommy really came into the limelight in 1946. He boxed several international tournaments that year and won most of his contests. He boxed against Scotland, for Ireland, against Scotland, against Wales, against England. He also boxed against France and the USA, which he won as well.
He fought Peter Crotty, the Iron Man, and he gave Peter an awful beating that night.
That was one of his favourite fights, the Iron Man, Peter Crotty. Nobody could weather it with Peter Crotty, and Tommy went and fought him, and Peter Crotty was one of the toughest men ever to fight for Ireland.
And after 6 grueling rounds, I beat Peter Crotty. But he was a great man and a very nice fellow.
After the bout, when we were having a nosh-up, I was sitting next to Tommy, and Peter Crotty was across the table from Tommy, and he said, "Tommy, like yourself, I boxed all over the world. He said, you're the best man I ever met." Leant across the table, shook Tommy's hand, and it was memorable. A great tribute from one boxer to another. Marvellous.
I heard he was the most stylish boxer that ever came out of Ireland.
His footwork was supposed to be impeccable, his fantastic footwork.
Tommy had a knack at the time. He used bandage his feet before he go into a ring. Tommy was masterful as a welter.
Boxed welterweight, middleweight, a cruiserweight and a light heavyweight.
Brilliant jab. He worked behind the jab all the time, and he just amazing in the ropes. He could slip on the ropes, and he would never get caught in one place. Like if you caught him at one shot, he'd be in around you and behind you, and he was gone out of there. He was never in the same place.
Come all you gallant fighting men who know the silver ring.
He was working in Dunlop's at the time, and he left on a Friday morning to go on a fight. He was fighting in Finland. Fought seven times in 7 days, and he was thinking he was going for one night. and he had all these full internationals, like 7 fights in 7 days. And then when he came back to work, they said, hey, what's going on here? And he says, oh, I was fighting for my country. He says, oh no, but you were fighting for your country, but you're working here, you know.
He had several offers to turn professional, but he refused them all. He was happy with Cork, happy to live in Cork, and happy where he was.
Tommy delivered milk from Milan shop at the bottom of Fair Hill. And it's going back a long time ago. I was about 8 or 10 then, and his parents lived in Open Dominic Street. And I recall he took me over to his parents' house one Christmas, and they gave me a slice of Christmas cake and a penny, riches untold for a little boy. And that was Tommy. Tommy was a lovely man. Lovely welterweight.
That's it. More outside them, that's it. Bring a leg outside.
There's certain skills that a trainer can pass on to a young lad in my position, okay, at the time. And all the young lads that, again, you either learn from your trainer or you don't. Now, John Kilcrone was good, but Tommy Hyde he could show you, he had done it in practice inside the ring, sparring. And like I said, Muhammad Ali was only a patch on him to me.
I saw him sparring a few times. Now, the man was an absolute genius, and it was brilliant to watch him. Like, you know, we were all in complete awe of the man.
Oh, he was the most gentle, humble man that you've ever met. He just very, very nice, very humble. He would stand up and he would show you how to jab and show you how to right cross, and this was like in his late 60s, and he was just a lovely man. But you'd wonder, like, you'd look at him and you just couldn't imagine how he could be so competitive and aggressive in the ring.
He was a member of the Sunnyside Club, as you probably know. He boxed for that club consistently. He won Munster titles, of course, on his way up. But what struck me about Tommy when I spoke to him was his lack of ego. He was a quiet, confident, nice, sincere individual. And it struck me too that he was very contented with his life. And I asked him, Tommy, were you glad you were a boxer? And I wrote down what he said to me. He said, I loved the game. I have no regrets whatsoever. It made me an independent bloke. I respected myself and never got out of line. That's what boxing did for me.
I would compare him like Muhammad Ali, even though Tommy now would have been around his 30s at the time, I would say. I was in my early teens. To see Tommy sparring inside the ring in Blackpool outside, it was unbelievable. And matter of fact, it was a stage that not alone was it a treat for me, but if it was known locally around that Tommy Hyde was going to be training tonight, you can be sure the club was going to be full. Just training only.
He obviously thought a great deal about his life, and he had a lot of wisdom in what he said. He had a lot of shanachal, little sayings about life, and he had one little verse which really struck me, and it went like this: never look for fault when you go through life, and if you should happen to find it, it's nice to be kind and somewhat blind and look for the virtues behind it. And that summed up the man for me, a real gentleman.
My first entry to boxing was in 1950, and it was a new club. I remember at the time, the Korean War, I think, was just raging at the time, and Charles Mazinski was being tortured by his tormentors in Hungary. It was 1950, and there was a new club starting in Cork. We weren't interested in what was going on out there, it was too far away. We were interested in boxing.
Like a lot of the young lads in the community at the time, you go from school and you try and become a messenger boy, and you get a bike and you cycle around the town doing little jobs, and you do your homework, and you know, you try and fill in your day then with what you were going to do after. So the boxing, for us at the time, became a great way of getting involved in something.
always as a child it had an attraction, listening to the radio now, you know, the old water battery types and that.
I was only about 10, I'd say, and I remember the first boxing club I went to was Corinthians. That was down in the end of Bunty's Field, as we call it, there on the north side.
We hadn't the equipment like they have now today, like, you know. So just had a shed, you know, a loft, if you like, the first one.
And my first recollection of the Glen Club was hearing the sound of the skipping rope and the bags being punched, and I knocked on the door, and Ned came out and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "My dad has sent me out." And he said, "Who's your dada?" And I said, "Patriska." Oh, he said, "Come on in." And it was a case of the coming to the pal who said the spider to the fly.
If the club was open 8 nights a week, I'd have been in there. I got completely hooked on it.
We'd congregate there outside Matt Talbot Hall an hour before opening. That's the way it was. You were very anxious to get in. Your main components that time was a skipping rope and a towel, if you were lucky.
We had a ring, we had the old boxing gloves. You didn't have the mitts as we had now.
We had no punch bags like what they had there, like, an old bag full of sawdust.
Every day we're here, busy at the skipping, in the flashing ropes, jumping, leaping, tripping.
When we're on the job, feel the floor is shaking, up and down we bob, till our feet are aching.
Come on now, get them up, right up, right up, right up, right up, 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 up.
Got to do it well, it's tough when you begin it. You think that bloody bell will never sound 3 minutes.
After go.
Push-ups now, sit-ups.
Then you're doing 6 rounds of skipping, then you're doing about 4 rounds of shadow boxing.
And in the club you'd be kind of doing combinations where you'd be doing like, so you'd be doing sit-ups or press-ups, and you do some skipping, and sometimes you'll have spars.
It's tough, like you're walking for about an hour now and a half, but if you do it, you'll enjoy it.
You be training, you get tired, but when you get tired, you have to keep fighting on.
You know, just to see the way they train and the way they coach it, the discipline they have, it's just incredible.
If I was left to train 24 hours a day, I'd train 24 hours a day. I train every single day.
I get up out of bed in the morning, the first thing I want to do is go training, to be honest. It was great. I always loved to keep myself fit all the time.
Love the training. It was the physical part of the sport that interests me most, not in the ring now.
At the time I boxed with the Glen, we train 4 nights a week, like.
Train hard, to fight easy.
There's men who fight like angry lions for an extra bob a day. Others will fight as hard to duck a penny off your pay. Get in the ring and come out fighting in and win the purse. There's a bloke who'll fight you to your knees if you don't get in first.
When you went into that ring, and I see it today with some of the boxers today, something comes over you. You leave yourself outside. Something different happens in the ring. You know, the blood flows.
You'd have used the toilet a few times before you went in. But once that you got in, it's just, you just forgot about it, you know?
Extremely nervous. Running in and out of the toilet every 5 minutes.
It's not the fear of the man, it's the fear of letting the crowd down.
Even for the coaches in the crowd, a lot of coaches get more butterflies than the young fellas.
It was actually nerve-wracking. I can still remember today, like, but the minute you go in there and you throw the first punch, then the nerves go out the window.
Don't get in the ring unless you're fear. You must have fear. That's your adrenaline. That's to get yourself psyched up.
There's always fear. If you're not going into the ring and you've no fear, you shouldn't be there.
Fear is adrenaline. If you don't have fear going in the ring, don't get in the ring.
If somebody said to you that when they go in the ring they're not nervous, they're a liar.
When you go into the ring, no matter who you are, you'll be a bit nervous. Everyone do get nervous. When the bell goes, they think you've forgotten about it.
We'd always tell the boxers, like, you know, once you're out there and you settle down,
your opponent over is exactly the same.
Excitement. Couldn't wait to get going. But the one thing that drove me nuts about it was the runners I was wearing. I couldn't keep the bloody things on, so I kicked them off after the first round, and the socks started falling off then, so I kicked them off after the second round. But I enjoyed it.
And you know he's not going to kick you, not going to bite you.
I mean, the very first punch I landed on the guy from the Glen Boxing Club, his face went pure red, and I was only after tapping him. I said, jeez, I said, if I hit him here, I can imagine what's going to happen to him.
Remembering everything you were taught, remembering your training, trusting your corner people training you gotta listen to them, everything they tell you.
Well, Gorson, your mind is then, I'm in the ring now, I want to beat him, or he wants to beat me, so...
When you're in the ring, I feel good.
Butterflies, everything, but once you're in then, the bell rings.
Who's going to hit the first punch? Is he going to hit me first, or are we going to hit him first? And I would always be nervous before the fight. But the minute you get the first dig in, that's gone. When you get the first dig in, you can smell the leather from the gloves. And I think that was fantastic, the smell of leather. You get a dig in the face, or if he gets a dig in the face, and it was great.
Nervous, like, I mean, if you haven't that bit of fear, like, you're only kidding yourself, like, you have to have that bit of fear, like.
It's very hard to describe, but when you're in a ring and there's just two people there, it's like there's no one else in the world.
And actually, enough you fight, like, it's an aggressive sport.
It's not about blood and guts, as people might say, and excuse my expression. It's not about that. It's about going into the ring, and it's not about the better man or the weaker man. It's about you going in, showing your talent, showing what you can do for your club. It's all about club, you see.
As I coached all lads at Boxing Olympics for me, I coached lads at Boxing all over the world. The most important thing is your mental side in any sport, the mental side in any life. But you must learn how to get yourself prepared. You're in the gym for 6 to 8 weeks getting ready for a fight. But that half an hour before a fight on your mental side is the most important thing.
All the training you did, all the dieting you did like now is down to this fight now.
To win into was a great, it's a great thrill just to get your hand to be put up in the air. And
often it depends on the personality of the man. And now, of course, of the women, because we have women boxers and we have the world champion, Katie Taylor. She's a mix. She's a mixture we call that type of a person who has both skills, a fighter and a boxer, a box fighter, and they're the best.
1, 2, 3, 4. What makes a good boxer for me would be a guy that's dedicated to his training. He'd listen to you.
Determination, training, and of course he's got to have the ability in him. It will be brought out by training and experience, but he's got to be prepared to suffer.
The way the boxer handles themselves inside in the ring, you get some of us are naturals. You get them there, they know how to cover up, they know how to move, slip a punch, ride a punch. Do you know what I mean? You know you have something to sell there. Other players you have to teach the basics of boxing.
I think dedication, loyalty, and a bit of discipline.
I don't think it's down to just one thing. There's a lot really. Like he said, discipline is one. I mean, you have to have a flair for it, you have to have it in your heart.
Believe in yourself, have ambitions, If you don't have ambitions, it's no good,
Be prepared to work hard, get in great condition, be fit, have dedication would be a big thing. Mentally, you need to be very strong to be a good boxer.
90% of boxing is psychological. It's mental.
Well, it takes an awful lot of dedication.
You could lose the fight even before you go into the ring if you're not positive. You have to be positive. You've 100% concentration.
There's no use going into a ring half fit because you're going to get hurt.
And inability to listen.
If you don't listen to your trainer, you may as well forget about it.
When you get into a ring, there's only you and your opponent, it's not a team.
But the most important thing about a good boxer is a person, you look for the heart in the person, you know what I mean? And everyone can't be #1 champion, everyone can't be #1.
A handy boxer will know what he's doing wrong. But then the trainer will see more than the boxer. He'll tell you then, he said, no, left hand, throw it more, right hand.
It's the hardest thing to get a 8-year-old young fella to understand where you can't forget yourself and throw a kick in the ring. And for the first 1 or 2 exhibitions, it's a possibility it has happened.
In boxing, there are two types of skills. There's the defensive skills. In other words, a boxer, and there are some boxers who can do this, they can stand in front of their opponent without throwing any punch and not allow the opponent to land any punch. There are many defence mechanisms. There's the slip where you slip it over your shoulders, there's the dip which you don't go underneath it, and there's all the parries. You can parry this way, parry the punches that way, you can block them, you can go back from them. There are many, all these skills are the defensive skills of a boxer, and they're the type of skills that a boxer who has a long-term career learns. And the attacking skills then are how you penetrate the opponent's defences. And this is a matter of all sorts of good balance, good movement around the ring, movement backwards and forwards, and then there are 3 ranges you must take into account. The long range where you use your full length, the medium range where you can hook and all the various punches, uppercuts, and then the close range where they're in close to each other.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more time.
And you must defend yourself, and most of that time it's body punching.
There's men who fight like angry lions for an extra bob a day. Others will fight as hard.
The best boxers have both skills.
Get in the ring and come out fighting in and win the purse.
A Cork sporting icon, world-renowned, and thousands did he thrill, was the battling flamed-haired boxer, Mick Leahy from Spangle Hill. He fought the best from east to west, but the British title was his conquest. That night in Nottingham was the year of '63. He blazed a trail of glory, became legendary. That night in Nottingham, he made history and fame when Spangle Hill's Mick Leahy, British middleweight champion, came.
He was an extraordinary boxer. He was like in a class by himself, because not only did he have a very long career, he boxed the real top boxers, and he was never outclassed. He might have been beaten, but he was never outclassed, and he boxed all over the world, really.
When he went abroad and he fought the likes of Barnes and Todd, they were real tough men. They were men who wouldn't be brought to Britain because they were too dangerous. But Mickey took them on and beat them in their own backyard, which is a great achievement.
He was more or less a kind of a fighter than a boxer, you know. He was very hard. Mickey had a good punch that time when he was fighting amateur, like, you know.
Mick joined the army in 1958, but he was out in the Glint Club when I been out there with John Martin and Keith Cronin and myself. And he came up, he had no rubber dollies, we call them that time. And I gave the first man to give me a pair of rubber dollies.
I remember him as a youngster, boxing in the Munster Championships. That time I was only about 11 or 12. It was back in 1952. And he boxed in the Munster Championships above in the army. And he was something else to watch at the time.
He used to sleep under a window. And this was the month of January or February. And he'd have that window open all night. And he'd get up in the morning, the fellas be saying, Mick, would you close the window? He said, did your mother ever tell you that the night here is the best day for your lungs? Kind of possessed with it, I don't know.
I idolised Mick Leahy because the two of us used to train very hard, you know. Mickey brought the best out of me, like, you know, how to train and everything like that.
And he'd have 2 balls in his hand, one in each hand, and he'd be squeezing them. And he had a pair of muscles in his hand from that there. So we're up there, they were like, Jesus, they were like 2 rugby balls in his hands.
We respect him both as a sportsman and as a brother. He was a hero and a brother as well.
He was good. He was non-stop. Like he was more of a fighter than boxer, if you know what I mean. He'd keep after, he'd weigh down.
Mick Leahy of Cork, Ireland, in the white trunks. Joey Arch of the
Like he had, you know, there's certain techniques in boxing that young lads develop and they bring it. It goes on right through their career. When the bell rings, he's over here in a split second on top of you. And 2 hands working.
He was very clever, very fast hands, and a lot of people think he didn't get punched that often. He was road punches. His style of evading punches was very good. A very good style, relaxed style.
And at that time we didn't have a radio at home. We used to go down to St. Mary's Club. It was at the top of Shandon Street. and they had a big old radio inside there. And the night the boxing used to be broadcast on the radio, it used to be packed inside there. When Mick landed a punch, the whole room exploded, was roaring for Mick Leahy.
Urging him on, come on, you love it.
You'd swear to God, no, we were actually inside where the fight was taking place with the atmosphere that was there. You know.
There was a show on, matter of fact, downstairs here in Vera Harrigan's. He boxed a fella called Bob Coffey. The same night my own brother would make me his first professional fight.
My fight was with Tony McGann. When Mick's fight was on, I had to go to the side of the ring to see him.
It was touch and go for a while, but towards the last 2-3 rounds then Mick Leahy came back on top, which he did win it after, he won it outright. But the excitement down the hall that night when his hand was put up, like, it was brilliant. That was the start of really kicked in that time then, when we saw the big guns, you know what I mean, like, you know, so boxing was on a high then for a long time, you know, fellas wanted to, young fellas, you know, they came back into boxing and all that, like.
His great claim to fame was, of course, his outstanding victory over the famous Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, okay, Robinson was 43 years old at the time, but he was still boxing.
It's the Skirl of the Pipes at Paisley Ice Rink, a tribute that only Scotland can pay to one of the greatest ever in the fight game, incomparable Sugar Ray Robinson, matched against Mick Leahy.
Mick was good enough to challenge for the Commonwealth title, for the European title, and he won the British title, of course, by a second round knockout.
I'm in New York City, right? And this man in this pub, the Grandstand pub, John Brown was his name, called me aside. He said, "You're involved with Mick Leahy." He said, I knew him well. Because he said, when I was a youngster, he said, Mick Leahy fought in Madison Square Garden. And he said, I was there at that, he said, with Mick, because I was a youngster. Mick brought me along. Because he said, my dad owned this pub as well, like I have today. And he said, Mick brought me along. And I was so proud, he said, of him that time in Madison Square Garden. He lost the fight in a split decision, but there was about 10,000 people cheered him out the ring as the victor.
That was like not a hard fight. We had the luxury of being able to see that, watch that on Saturday afternoon on Fight of the Week from America, so we were quite lucky in that one.
I think his greatest fights were against the top British and continental boxers.
British middleweight champion Mick Leahy versus Wally Swift. A title bout at Nottingham Ice Stadium. Reg King's promotion. It's an aggressive Leahy tonight, back to camera here, and Swift daren't take any chance in the opening stages.
I met him actually after winning the British title. He was at home, and I was walking up St. Comer's Road, and I saw this man. He was a small man, like he wasn't a big man, come towards me, but he was huge, and the foxy hair, and I shook hands with him.
It was about in Nash's boarding with him, take him out for a walk when he won the Lonsdale belt, and then up Spring Lane, and I show him where the old boxing club, because Mickey has gone now, the Glen Rovers took her over. So many the time you beat the head off me inside here. So Mickey was sat laughing, says he, threw his hands around me, says he, Eddie, says he, we wouldn't fight no more because I never knew that you were doing a line with Mara, my first cousin.
Practical joker, yeah, as a boxer, brilliant sportsman.
So Mick was one of the best.
I see you are a fighting man, and wear the belt I say. What do you say? Will you consent to have a round with me?
It was going grand me if we followed him, his career, until that tragic car crash. And everybody knew then that his career was finished.
This is the Eddie, I was on the phone with is it Charles Middleton, was his manager.
He phoned. He said, oh, Mickey said the fight is off.
He was on his way to Leamington. He'd had a little bit of a disagreement with his manager.
I remember just saying, oh, blast it. I remember just telling him. That was it.
He crashed into the back of a lorry,
which wrote his car off and, nearly caused his life.
Doing more for about a month, was it?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. Yeah.
It was a policeman who attended the actual accident that realised that there was something happening and cleared his airwaves, and Mick lived with that. His teeth were in his throat. Well, the injuries were extensive injuries to his head and left side of his body. He lost the sight, his left eye, and the hearing in his left ear. And he was very, very ill for quite a number of months. Unconscious for 3 months, I believe, and semi-conscious for another couple of months.
His mother was at his bedside all the time until he regained conscience, you know. And he used to be dreaming about the boxing, and that brought him around.
I started training, about 2 weeks before I started training really hard again, you know, because that's what the doctor said. He's a good job you were so fit because he'd been gone, you know.
He never actually fully recovered, but I'd say he went to work. He went back to work in about 5 years, I think. He went back to work at Massey Ferguson's.
It cut out a career of one of the greatest boxers, I think, that ever came out of Cork anyway, that I've seen.
Deirdre Riley of the Cork Examiner contacted me about Mick and about what we're doing, she said. And I'm after looking at his record, she said. And in God's name, why wasn't he honoured in his own city long ago? She had informed me that he already beat us to it in Coventry City, where they had a 20-foot mural set up in the centre of the square in Coventry to pay tribute to Mick Leahy. So they kind of beat us to it, but I think we answered all the questions after when we got the plaque put down in Bishop Lucy Park forevermore.
It was a lovely tribute.
I'm Mick's nephew. My dad is Jimmy. He'll be a Mick's brother, so we just heard about the occasion today, so we decided to come up because we were all born in England, so we knew about his boxing career from very young, and even when we came back, he was a bit of a legend to the Cork people. So we always kind of followed and tracked back into history to see how good he really was, and he was the first Corkman to win the British title, and I think that's why we're here today, to commemorate this, and it's long overdue. I see a big turnout of all these old boxing buddies here, and his son is after coming back from London, so it's great to have us all here today for this.
As I sit here remembering you, the scented dust their blessing falls, the flowers lie gleaming in the dew, the sun gleams red in all red walls. On eves like this it used to be, when life was young and the love was new. But now there's nothing left to me but to sit here remembering you, remembering you, remembering you.
There's men who fight like angry lions for an extra bob a day. Others will fight as hard to dock a penny of your pay. Get in the ring and come out fighting in and win the purse. There's a bloke who'll fight you to your knees if you don't get in first.
It's been there since Roman times.
Man will always fight.
it's an instinct, and there's been man being an animal. Animals will always fight.
You're in a small, limited area with another person, and of course boxing is very equal. In other words, he's the same weight as you are, he's the same age as you are, and you're in there to engage in a strong physical contact.
And the corner's there and they're watching, the ref is there, there's a doctor or medic on site, there's always a doctor in the audience, always.
So you have to be able to defend yourself in this dynamic situation.
Well, it's all about not being hit. You're there, you don't want your opponent to score points on you.
I think I like to think of boxing as well as like chess, you know. It's not about getting in there and just brawling, like, you know, it's about outwitting your opponent.
Nobody ever goes out to actually hurt people deliberately. It's in there, you or him, and that's all it is. It's an achievement to actually who comes out the best, like gladiators.
Boxing is an extremely safe sport because unlike a team sport where you have 15 and 15 and they're crashing at each other and they have only one referee.
If you're a young referee going in and doing your course as a referee, the very first thing you're told that the protection of the boxers is paramount.
Boxing, like as such, is a rough man's sport, as but it's gentlemen that play at the end, they say, like, you know.
You could be there now watching people arguing and you just back away.
I was never in trouble outside the ring.
If you're in town and like on a Friday night and a fella goes to make a go for you, like you'd actually turn around and walk away, you know?
Just walk away, better man like.
You'll never see a boxer being a bully.
I'm involved in amateur boxing. It's one of the most safe sports in the world. All the studies have been done, rugby, hurley, football, boxing has come in last.
Especially now, the amateur boxing now has gone very, very safe. There's fights being stopped there and they don't need to be stopped, but it's just the safety of the opponent, of the boxer they're thinking of.
I haven't had serious injuries. I've got my brother, for instance, he's broken his leg, broken his arm, broken his rib. I mean, he's playing soccer.
I never once got hurt in boxing, I got a black eye.
If you're going to make it as a boxer, you should know by at least 13, 14 years of age. Because once the punches start getting heavy and you start getting a broken nose and you're not progressing, you're not getting to the nationals or you're not even getting to the Munsters.
The easiest thing to do is let the fight go ahead and let the referee do it, like. But it's my job and duty of care to make sure that my boxer is safe.
There's nobody going to advise you, oh, stay boxing, stay boxing. That isn't the sport. The sport is about progression and it is a sport, and that's the key word, it's a sport.
There's nothing wrong with sending a young fella down the boxing club and throwing them in. There's no one going to get hurt. Everyone has the best of gear nowadays. It's not like 30, 40 years ago when you know gear at all.
Go back years ago, I might be in agreement with them before the headgear came in.
We in the ex-boxers will always emphasise, always acknowledge and encourage boxing as a sport where you live cleanly, speak softly, trust in God, fight hard, fight fair.
And any bully, if he's a boxer and he's a bully outside the ring, he won't be tolerated by his trainer or a committee in any club.
It's not barbaric.
Come all you gallant fighting men who know the silver ring.
Michael Roach is one of the classiest boxers that I've ever seen.
There was nobody wanted to meet Michael, nobody wanted to box him because he was so hard to hit. They in boxing, a lot of people think of boxing is about aggression. Boxing is about hit without being hit. So boxing is more a defensive sport than it is an aggressive sport. Michael was a master at that.
Michael was almost a pure boxer. He used his advantages, his physical advantage. He was a tall lad, long reach, and they're the skills he used in his boxing.
10 years before his time, if you like, you know, because with the scoring system, that was there afterwards. It was suited Mick down to the ground, to be quite truthful, you know.
Southpaws who lead with the right hand are very, very awkward for orthodox boxers because they're not used to. They usually meet the boxers who will lead with their left hand, and that's what Michael was very, very good at, and that's why he was so successful, because he was able to implement his own style successfully against most types of opponent.
Mick Roach was a technician as well. He was good. He was good.
How he started was, I said, my wife used to be at home at night. She looks, she said, it's 10:30 at night. Where is he? I said, I know, he's probably out there somewhere. So we go out and we were looking, no sign of him. There was a few youngsters around the place all right, and they said, no, we didn't see him at all.
And I just followed the kids down to the gym. My parents didn't even know where I was. I used to just go missing off the street and come back 2 hours later from the gym. It was weeks, maybe months went by before they even knew I was boxing.
Albie Murphy's wife met my wife, they're related, like downtown one day, and she said, oh yeah, Albie was telling me that night that Meg Long's son is down in the boxing club. So she came up and she said, you know where he is that night? Where do you be at night? I'd be down there with the lads. You'd be down in the boxing club. Is that right or wrong? Oh yeah, I said, yeah, I do. I said, you're not going down in the morning. I said, stop the lights now. I said, don't take that away from him now. I said, that's the best thing he could be doing in this present day.
So from there, then he just stuck at it. You know, the friends came and go. They left the boxing. He just stuck at it. I just thought it was great. I thought it was for me, you know.
He won a few titles, Munster titles, Cork County titles. He won all those up. He won juvenile, All Ireland juveniles. And he was going well, but there was a snag in his career, and that was the death of Albie Murphy. It kind of set him back.
And from there, people don't realise this, from 89 to 97, it was 8 years, 7 years I went up to the, 8 titles I went up there, and I got beat every year.
We all thought for such a good boxer, like, he might not come back no more, like.
And from that, it was a lower point for them couple of years.
I said to him, look, there's no good lying back from it. No, I said, you'd have to keep going forward. So I brought him down to Albie's house one day to see Albie's wife, and she was talking to him, and she said, Michael, don't you pack this up now, she said. You carry on, she says, for Albie's sake. And she said, you promised me that. So he promised her, he came out. I said, are we going to continue now? He said, oh yes, I'll carry on.
When Albie passed away, Kieran took over.
Michael was about 15 when Albie died. So like that's one of my big influences. There was Michael Roger, Paul Buttermore, you had my own brother Gordon. Like they were top class boxers all over the world, but they'd no one there then to see, you know what I mean? They'd no one. So it was very hard to walk away, you know what I mean? So I stayed with him. So I had Michael since he was 14. Like he won 5 Irish senior titles for me. Like we went through highs and he went up to 3 or 4 senior titles at the start. He could never win a senior title, but in the end he got there. You know what I mean?
Big break came in '97, and I won the senior title in '97, and from there on, and I suppose '97, '98, and '99, I was senior champion, and they were the only. I fought 3 times in each championships for the whole year. Didn't box anything else for the whole year, just the championships. Because at the time, I suppose I was after getting a house and a mortgage, couldn't get the time off work, which is understandable.
He boxed him for the Olympics.
As far back as I can remember, I was 12 when Kieran Joyce went to the first Olympics in '84. He went to Los Angeles, and I always remember I have this vision of him with a blanket over him. Kieran used to sweat, unbelievable, you know. But everybody have to have somebody to look up to, and Kieran was my idol. Kieran was I suppose everybody's idol. He kept the club going, you know. So he was in the Olympics. So from day one, since that day, I just wanted to go to the Olympics.
In former years, there was no qualification necessary. Ireland could name their whole team, send them off to the Olympics. There was no necessity for them to qualify by boxing other countries as well. They just had to qualify at home.
In '96, all the qualifiers changed. You had to come out of Europe. You know, Europe was only 10, 12 countries in 88, 90. And then all the countries started breaking up. there's something like 32 countries now in Europe, you know, which is very, very, it's one of the hardest continents to get out of. So you have to get to the finals of one of those qualifying tournaments, multi-nations, to qualify. So the 2 finalists qualify for the Olympics.
Come all you gallant fighting men who know the silver ring.
This guy, I didn't know where he was from, just walked in to the lift in front of me. And
he said, who are you boxing?
Huge, no, jeez. I thought he was heavyweight, light heavyweight at least. So I turned around and says, who do you fight? And he says to me like that, he looks at my vest and he says, are you Ireland, yeah? 71, yeah? So I kept my composure, I don't know how I did, but I said, oh, holy shit, how am I going to beat this guy?
He went into the ring, he won, and qualified for the Olympics.
But then I suppose my luck changed again in 1999 when I moved to Pfizer. Now, people don't realise, like, they gave me the time off to train, I didn't have to worry about a mortgage, and people don't realise this was my lifetime dream, and I got the chance to do something that I always wanted to do. So I went up we were training in the National Coaching and Training Centre in Limerick, and there was an ease out my mind, and the way I was even to train alone, even they said I was a different bloke, you know. But only for Pfizer at the time in 1999, I was only in the company 3 months, and I qualified, and they just told me take the rest of the time off for the Olympic coach training. It was unbelievable.
Being an Olympian is in itself an accolade, whether or not you win medals or not, whatever it was. So that was the pinnacle, I would say, of Michael's career.
Irish contingent at the Darling Harbour Arena cheered Ireland's sole boxing representative into the ring for his first contest of the Olympics. 28-year-old Michael Roach from the Sunnyside Boxing Club in Cork had waited a long time for his shot at the big time, but his Olympic experience was to prove all too brief. Despite scoring with a left early on, the Turkish light middleweight Karaguliu soon began to negotiate the southpaw's jab, and Roach was unable to live with his opponent's speed and power. 17-4 in the end to the young Turk.
He was a better man. I know from the start I was 7 points down after the first round. I just wasn't doing it. I felt great, I felt confident going in. It was nobody's fault at the end of the day but my own, so he was a better man. It's just disappointing after coming so far. All this training and everything to go good, but that's boxing.
I can always say I was at the Olympics and I saw my son boxing. And I thought it was a proud moment for me to see that.
I wouldn't change a thing. I go back and do the whole lot again, but it's very, 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 it's a selfish sport. But it's great, you know, it gives great character for a kid. Now, I mean, for the courage for a kid to climb through the ropes at 11, it takes fierce courage. And it'll give them character for the rest of their lives, which is brilliant, even for that alone, you know.
Boxing was always what they call the Cinderella sport. I mean, you didn't need anything other than a hall and a punch bag and a couple of mirrors and a skipping rope, and that was it.
Boxing really has taken its rightful place in sport again, here in the city and all in Ireland as well, of course.
Boxing will reassert itself as it always has in recession times. Cork and Ireland have always reverted back to boxing when times are tough.
The huge difficulty of the Irish Association until this century, in fact, was lack of funding.
I've heard other people mention the GAA and soccer, basketball. Boxing doesn't get that kind of attention, unfortunately.
I think they're getting a terrible ordeal all down through the years, where government is concerned, money-wise, and what have and this and that. And I often say, like, it's the working man's sport, the boxing, and if you talk about on the big stage, you know what I mean, is Olympics and what have like that, who's the only guys that you can depend on?
At the moment, you have to travel to Dublin to go training. We should have that here in Cork. The kids shouldn't have to travel. You know, we should have one training centre in Munster. It's not there.
When I was on the Irish team, I used to travel up to Dublin every weekend. That's a weekend gone out of my life that I had to spend the whole time up there. And I was working down here as well at the time when I had to go up. And that means sometimes I had to take time off work and everything.
It's very difficult for a man who has a job during the day to train every day in the evening, to box competition. I mean, it's extremely difficult. And then he must get time off work, which all the boxers we spoke about had to get time off work if they had to travel.
Through boxing, I lost a lot of jobs because they didn't want to know about boxing in them days. Or any sport for that matter, I don't think. But nowadays, they're well looked after. and they're sorted with their jobs and everything else. Any job will be delighted to have a chap that's boxing for their country or competing for their country in any sport. But like I said, my parents, they spent everything on me that they had. They borrowed borrowed money to get me to places, you know, and I'm forever in their debt. I hope we don't start looking for it.
Right, if you're heading off there now, lads, I'd say it's 5 past.
There's a great county board, I know, at the moment.
Only for them, we wouldn't be going amateur boxing, we wouldn't be going where we're going without them, you know.
As with any sport, there could be a lot more done, you know what I mean? A lot more done, but there's a lot more different things now with insurances and all this. Like when I was in the club, you walk into the club and you train. A person can't walk into the club now unless he signs up and he's a qualified member and this, and he has insurance from his doctor and all this, you know what I mean?
There's a high performance in Dublin now, you know. I mean, you can make that out by the amount of medals, the gold medals that the senior team are bringing back to Ireland at the moment, you know. That high performance now is going all the way down to juvenile level. The high performance is what it's all about. Yeah? You need to get your kids up into the high performance.
We're trying to get the premises up the road here in Knocknaheeny. We have the land, council promised they're trying to build it for us. If we get that built, we'll have superstars coming out of the car.
I'm sure it's the likes of Jack McAuliffe, 1896, one of the greatest champions of all times. I'm sure it was he inspired boxing in Cork at that time, like, because he was a marvel, even in recent times. And Nat Fletcher was the Bible of boxing. Nat Fletcher, when he was asked to analyse the greatest champions of all time, and when it came to the lightweight division, which Jack McAuliffe was lightweight champion, and when you compare that division was graced with people like Sugar Ray Robinson, Hank Armstrong, Berg, all these classic names. He said, the Cork man wins. He was the best of all.
Anybody can press a button and blow a ship up. Anybody can use an atom bomb. Anybody can pick up a big whip and whip you. Anybody can stick a knife into you. Anybody can pull a trigger. But where's the man with the character that can take a punch on the nose and keep his temper and keep control of himself?
This is the BBC Home Service from the Midlands.
What day did the world stop moving? What day did the earth stop turning?
If you're hurt, you'll get up and fight. And that's life. Because when you're born, your life starts to fight. You're fighting against something. You're fighting against something. And that's life.
What do you say?
And that's life.
On the Thursday, I was in one world. Monday and Tuesday, I seem to have been thrown into a completely different world. Did the sun stop shining? Did the sun stop shining?
If you're hurt, you'll get up and fight. And that's life. Because when you're born, your life starts to fight. You're fighting against something. You're fighting against something. And that's life.
Where's the man with the character that can take a punch on the nose and keep his temper and keep control of himself? Where's the man? Where's the man?
What day did the world stop moving? What day did the earth stop turning?
flowers are blooming fresh and gay, and the sun burns in the sky.